So the integumentary system is more than just covering things up. Like we covered in the previous lecture slides, that it has an important role in making vitamin D production. Again, that UV light actually becoming beneficial in that aspect. And general functions of vitamin D, like one big one is calcium absorption for your bones. So it's also important for bone strength, and even though it's your skin, it kind of helps out your bone mineral density. But we could talk more about that in the next unit. And then it also has that protection function. So we did talk about the keratinization. So even though we have a lot of keratin in things like our nails that protect the ends of our fingers, or like in animals, they have the antlers and horns, but it also forms a barrier between the outside and the inside of your body. So it does have that hydrophobic and some mechanical protection as well. And also, so we didn't talk about those other ones. So sensation detection. So your skin is very sensitive. That's why you can feel when something's touching you, or if something like a bug is crawling across your skin. This is why you can feel things. Temperature regulation is also very important. So your skin is very important in cooling yourself off, and also like retaining heat as well. And then blood storage as well. So again, you have all this blood vessels, and if you look at the diagram of where the blood vessels are, you see that they kind of extend throughout the dermis and hypodermis. So it's actually very useful in terms of providing a reserve for the blood as well. Actually, these two go together. And excretion, secretion. So we're going to cover, like, the integumentary system is more than just your skin. There's also a lot of glands in your skin. So what would happen if your skin wasn't there? Say the technical term for this is degloving. So this is what it would look like if your skin wasn't there. Your skin is an important barrier, and I think this is maybe Body Worlds, or they had the knockoff coming here the other like maybe several years ago. But yeah, this is if you're ever been to one of these exhibits. So this person here is holding all their skin. So if we didn't have our skin, all of this muscle and all this like fascia and all this connective tissue would be exposed to an environment. So this is what we look like without all that skin and sub-Q fat. Now, so it's very important as a barrier, because again, if you try to walk around with like, or where did I see that? There was a cartoon where someone was like inside out, and then every time they took a step, they would leave a trail of blood because they didn't have any more skin. So yeah, it's pretty gross, right? So what we have here, so if you've ever been to a cold, very cold area, what happens if you don't have enough insulation? And what happens to your extremities, especially your fingers and toes? Well, you might notice that they start to lose their color. And if it gets really bad, then you might end up with frostbite. So what happens is that what is causing that red color in the rest of these fingers, but there's no color in her middle finger and her pinky over there? Yep, so it's frostbite, right? So this is why does your skin lose its color? Well, it's the same thing as it's linked to another question as well. Why do some people get hot and red in hot climates? And what we have here is, okay, so this is a disclaimer. This is actually showing the East Asian alcohol flush reactions, or what we sometimes just call Asian glow or Asian flush. But this is what we have, but it's kind of similar. What's happening is that we have, instead of getting paler, now you have someone's skin getting redder. So this is the underlying reason why we have this redness being lost when you're cold, and why you get more red when you're hot. It's due to, or if you have something like this, it sometimes shows up like that. Like for me, I have rosacea, and two common triggers of rosacea are heat and sunlight. And where do we live? Yeah, somewhere where there's a lot of heat and sunlight, so kind of like screwed up. Yeah, I'm kind of like, oh, who's the loser in that aspect? Me. But that's a big thing about the skin. It's important in regulating temperature and also storing blood, so the two go hand in hand. So what we see here is that you have all these blood vessels, major blood vessels, or venules and arterioles here in the hypodermis, but you also have these arteries and veins and venules and arterioles, and then they end up in little capillaries over here. So you have all this network of blood vessel that runs through the lower or deeper hypodermis and the dermis as well. So they carry blood, but they also, what is the major fluid component of blood? Plasma, but plasma is mostly water. So water absorbs heat. So this is why when you mist yourself with a spray of water, this is why you feel cooler. And this is why, like, if you have like a pool, you notice it kind of retains water, or bodies of water, or when you boil something, it takes a while for the to actually evaporate, right? So water carries temperature, absorbs heat. So what's one way your body can cool itself off? Is maybe put that heat and that water and blood closer to the surface of your body. So if all this blood ends up closer to the surface of your body, that makes it more exposed to the environment. So all the heat in your blood is now being lost through to the environment because you're pushing it closer to the surface where it can escape to the environment. So this is why when people who get to flush in hot climates, this is why they get redder, like me. If you ever see me in person, sometimes I have red splotches due to my rosacea and also the heat reaction. But same with frostbite. This also linked to this blood storage and temperature regulation as well. So this is why we saw that if you see someone who's getting prone to frostbite, or if you're in a cold environment for a while, this is why we see the extremities, especially the parts that are distal from your trunk. These are the first to get white because they start to lose blood, or what your body does is kind of like squeeze these little blood vessels, and by squeezing them and causing them to constrict, this pushes the blood closer to your body. The thing is that if you're in a cold environment, do you want to lose the heat from your blood to the environment? No, you want to keep yourself warm, right? And which is more important, the tip of your finger or your internal organs like your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your lungs? So again, your internal organs are more important than just the tip of your fingers. So this is why if you're in a cold environment, you start to lose, but the blood your body tries to shunt the blood from the extremities to your internal organs, and especially this very important organ over here. Okay, so then what we have is that red blood cells over there. So the red blood cells. So why are red blood cells red? I mean, they're definitely in blood and they're red, but a big important part of red blood cells is that they have this compound called heme, and heme is actually part of a larger remember quaternary structure, so you have multiple polypeptides. So this is a very important protein called hemoglobin. And the heme in hemoglobin is what gives the red cut, and especially this iron atom at the center of heme. Now I want you to know this clover leaf pattern of heme. Just recognize it there's many structures that look like that, but just know that heme has iron, and this is the reason why your red blood cells are red. So this is why, like when someone is in a hot environment, that's why they flush and turn red. It's because of all the blood vessels opening up and bringing more blood to the surface. So more blood to the surface means more red blood cells to the surface. That's why people appear redder. Conversely, when it's very cold, all the blood gets brought more toward the inside of the body, and that's why we see that the extremities start to get pale. And this is why we get frostbite if we're exposed to the cold for too long, because it's not just about the blood and the red color and heat, it's also the oxygen and nutrients in blood. So if the tip of your finger doesn't have any blood flow to it, what's going to happen to the cells? They're not going to have any oxygen, they're not going to have nutrients. So if you're exposed to the cold for too long, you might start to lose the cells here, and if it gets worse enough, you might have to amputate that part where all the cells have died. So this is why hemoglobin is also part of skin color as well. Okay, so what did I highlight over here in this? Let's talk about another function. So this is sensation, and what I'm tracing out here are nerve endings, but for now just know that your skin has a lot of endings that send signals to the nerves in your body. So if you haven't encountered if you just moved to Hawaii and you haven't encountered this, eventually you'll encounter this sooner. It's not if, it's when. But you're sleeping, and then all of a sudden what happens? In the middle of the night, you feel something go across your skin and then wakes you up. So if you ever had this happen to you, you know what a cockroach feels like, right? But how do you know what a cockroach feels, those tiny, prickly legs feel, compared to your bed sheet or some other thing like your pet that brushes up against you during the night, or anything else that brushes up your skin? Well, same thing. Here's another example of why your skin is so sensitive. And it can not only detect types of like, or where you have these sensations, but also different fine details as well. Yep. So here we have Braille, and I mean Braille. If you ever seen an example of Braille, very tiny, but these people who can read Braille, they're able to use their very sensitive nerve endings in their fingertips and detect like the actual shape and read pretty darn quickly. I'm pretty amazed with that. But this is why our skin is super sensitive, and this is why we have all these nerve endings. So we can kind of tell like where something is, the shape of things, and it's also very important. I mean, this is, even though we're sleeping, this is why we wake up, because our skin has all these nerves.